And it looks like Alanna is here. Hi, Alanna.
Hello?
Hi, it's great to see you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hi, how are
good. I can see you, I can hear you, all as well.
you? Good. I had to do this from my phone because my computer is just having a day.
It's all right. I feel like that's like Zoom these days. You can like never keep up. It's like one day it's working perfectly, and then the next it's like, okay, we're just not going to let you in. It's fine.
Exactly. That's exactly how it's been going this year. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. I'm just getting through my Monday. It's a short week. I'm feeling
Oh, nice.
great.
Yes. I'm excited about the short week.
Yeah, same. I'm ready for it. I don't work a full week in the month of December because I had a lot of time to use. So it like worked out really well. This is like the beginning of like my 3 and 4 day weeks for the rest of the year. And I'm like, this is great.
You know what that means? That you're going to go into your new year like hopefully a little bit more recharged. So that's good.
Yes. I feel like it goes perfectly with what we're talking about today with self-care and all of that.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So I already introduced myself. I introduced you a little bit, but would you like to tell everyone who's here just kind of who you are, what you do, maybe a little bit about like how you linked up with On Point, and then we can kind of dive into things.
Yeah. So my name's Alanna Gardner. I am a marriage and family therapist in Philadelphia. And I also, back when things were open, I was also teaching fitness too. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah, so for me, I'm very into sort of like attacking mental health from like a holistic standpoint and understanding that, at least for me, and hopefully what I share with other people, maybe they feel this way too, that the body is, if you're able to kind of ground the body and take care of your body well, then, you kind of are already starting at a good baseline for, your mental health. And then you're able to kind of have the energy and all of that to kind of pull in and be able to kind of figure out what else additional needs that you have, right? So I ended up working with On Point because I just kind of reached out to your founder one day. I was very interested in what she was doing.
Yeah.
And to have like a good referral base for myself. So we actually met up for coffee when we were able to meet up in real life.
Back then.
And with her, and it was awesome. So we kind of combined, and I offer the mental health piece, and I always refer out to On Point.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like we're really about kind of treating the whole body as well. Like we're always recommending, going to therapy or finding a counselor or just kind of working on all aspects of health, because if one thing is missing, it's so hard to get everything else in tune, like physical, spiritual, mental, all of that kind of goes hand in hand.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Oh, good. So obviously today, with it being the week of Thanksgiving, with us going into a pretty busy holiday season, we just wanted to talk a little bit about, self-care and the importance of that. And not only that, but just kind of like really taking care of your mental health in this really stressful time. Like obviously it's so easy to get caught up in running around and shopping and saying yes to 100 different things. So obviously I had some questions for you, but ultimately when things get really stressful, or when you notice that your clients are kind of like just so, overworked or, overran or just doing too many things, like what would you say are kind of your top practices for self-care around even the holidays or even any kind of like overly stimulating and stressful?
Yeah. So I'm very into, like I said earlier, check with your body first, right? So I always tell my clients, like, if you're dehydrated, if you're hungry, if you're sleep deprived, you're already starting out at a deficit, right? Yeah. So your level of tolerance for stressors, for busyness, for making mistakes, because we're so busy, we make a lot of mistakes, or we're just humans, so we make a lot of mistakes too, or whatever the fluctuations of life, your window for tolerance for that is smaller when you're not taking care of your body. So I always ask them, check in first, physically what's going on, what are some of the physical sensations you're feeling, are you well hydrated, are you not sleeping well, are you eating well? If you check through that first, let's see what's going on with the body. Second thing that I try to tell people to do is to breathe. I think that sounds like so simple, but many of us, we don't breathe well. That's, what I mean? Like we don't efficiently breathe, right?
We'll
so
take
if we're
the time
busy,
to actually do it.
yes. So taking those deep diaphragmatic, breaths, There's a really great app that I encourage people to use, and it's called the Breathwork.
Okay.
Um, it's Breathwork spelled without, I think, I could actually type it in the
Yeah,
chat, but
that would be perfect.
Breathwork app. It's a great app that just honestly shows you how to breathe, and it gives you different breaths for different situations or
Oh,
circumstances.
cool.
So if you're feeling anxious, there's a breath for that. If you're feeling like, just kind of sluggish, there's a breath to kind of, activate you.
Mhm.
If you just want to take a moment and do some deep breathing, that's always something that's really great and grounding.
Yeah.
So I tell people to kind of check in with the body first, make sure that your essentials are taken care of. And then, do the breathing. And then also after you've kind of done those two things, what can you do to kind of, continue to maintain like your emotional wellness, right? So
Yeah.
something that's going to stick and that you could frequently do. It doesn't have to be super in depth. It could be journaling. It could be, I like to sometimes record myself because some days I just don't want to
Write it
write a
down.
single thing. um, voice memos, just kind of releasing whatever it is that, is kind of going on, but also giving you that time to just sort of check in with yourself and to make sure that you're okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the voice memos can be so helpful because I feel like sometimes when I recommend journaling, see, some people are so like, oh, like then I have to do one more thing or I have to put it on
Yes,
the list.
yes,
So like
yes.
if you can just kind of like put a voice memo on, like, call yourself and leave a voicemail, something like that to just kind of get everything out. It's so great. And then like if you want to go back and listen to it, you don't even have to listen to it. Like that's the
You
point
don't.
even with journaling. Like you don't have to go back and read what you journaled. It's just kind of about like being able to kind of let that all out.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even you can, go back and listen to what you were going through at that time. And if you're in a better place now, it's evidence that you're resilient, right? Or it's
Yes, you
evidence
can
that
work
you could
through
get
it.
through, that you could do hard things and get through hard things.
Yeah. Do you feel like you recommend even writing down like those like basics? Like, are you getting enough food? Are you getting enough water? Or do you feel like that's just kind of like a mental checklist that you have everyone go through first? That's like, okay, I'm getting my water check. I'm eating well, check. Like, or do you feel like
Yeah.
sometimes it works better to even like put like, like write that in a journal or in your, planner or something like that?
Yeah. I think it depends on what type of person, I'm
Yeah.
working with. Some people, they're all about like,
The
I love a
checklist.
list. I love to check things off. I love to, I love that reminder. But if that's too overwhelming for people, it's really kind of being like, take a moment, check in with your body and really like think about your day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So whatever works for someone is whatever that works. But really, I'm always kind of telling people that's your immediate go-to. Like, did you drink water today? When
Yeah.
was the last time that I ate? How was my sleep? Is there actually like a space or place in my body that doesn't feel well right now? That's kind of, nagging at
Yeah.
me, as like you're going about your day.
Totally. To kind of check in to really see where it's coming from.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So what do you think are maybe like the biggest like contributors or most significant contributors to stress around the holidays? Like if you had to kind of put it into a few categories or a few specific things, like I think we can all think about like being, there's just too many things going on, but do you feel like you've noticed certain things that do come up around the holiday season?
So the things that I notice about the holiday season, I think is that there's expectations that people want to meet, especially if you are somebody who has children. I have a 14-month-old. There's a lot of expectations that
Yeah.
other family members have of like wanting to see her. And so that's like, the pressures of that are trying to meet those expectations. So there's a lot of that. I think that also with, the added busyness and saying yes to multiple things, that also plays a part into it. I also think that, a big thing is that family is stressful. There's not everybody has really great, relationships with their family members, and they still choose to interact with them because they're family, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, it's a matter of like knowing that anxiety or that argument or that something, stressful from family is either going to happen or might happen, kicks up a lot of anxiety for us. And so that also plays a role into how stressed out we feel about, the holiday season.
Yeah, for
And we're
sure.
also very much out of our schedules too. for a
Yeah,
very
it's just
long
like too
time.
many things happening and we're saying yes to so many things. Do you feel like you saw a shift in maybe people being less stressed, like even last year, because there weren't as many expectations just because people weren't seeing as many people, but then again there was still the stress of just, COVID-19. So like, did you notice a shift or a difference, or did you feel like the stressors maybe just were different reasons?
I think the stressors were very much because this time last year, we were in the thick of
Yeah.
COVID, so everything I think was partially COVID based. However, I did see that people who did have, family conflict or, just were really burnt out around the holidays because maybe it was for them, it's the end of Q4 and they have to do all these
Yeah.
different things. And, so it was like an easy out for them, what I mean? But there was also during that time, people who really like love their families and they
You want to
couldn't
be seeing them and then don't
celebrate
get
with
to.
them.
Totally.
Yeah, you couldn't do what you normally did. And I also feel like there's a lot of traditions and that's wrapped up in the holidays. And even if you're somebody who doesn't celebrate, Christmas or any of the other holidays during that time period, you know, the getting together, family, tradition, eating, all that, we look forward to those things. So
Yeah.
it was interesting. I did see a fluctuation between some people were relieved and
Mhm.
they were like, oh, I can finally like get a breath without feeling guilty about
Yeah.
saying no. Right. And then there was other people who, really missed being with people. So there was like loneliness there, and longing
Definitely,
to be
definitely.
connected.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
wanting that connection, totally. And I think
Yes.
that's always what comes with like changes or shifts. So it kind of like could go both ways.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So what do you think you would say to someone who was a client who was like kind of like talking to you through like, I just can't get it all done. There's too much to do. There's too many places to be. Like I have to, like there's just too many moving pieces. So what would you kind of do to help that person maybe understand that like it could get it done or that they don't have to do it all? Or like, what
Hmm.
would you kind of do to work through that with them?
Yeah. So first, let's just, it's acknowledging the feelings,
Yes.
right? The feelings of overwhelmed, maybe the feelings of like failing because you're not doing what you feel like you could be doing,
Mhm.
right? To the best of your ability. Whatever feeling that comes up, during for them, regarding that, acknowledge it. And then don't make it worse by judging that emotion,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
When we judge, whatever emotion comes up for us, it's what we would call like a meta emotion. So basically it's a feeling about a feeling.
Hmm.
And when we do that, we, don't even really get a chance to really feel the first feeling to the full because now we're exacerbating it by adding something else to it,
Yeah.
So just allowing yourself to feel whatever it is that you feel and to understand that, this is only temporary. It's not all the time. Right. And that, you're human and, some things you can get done and some things you can't. Right.
Yeah.
And so after sort of acknowledging the emotions behind it, then we can kind of go through, all right, so are we prioritizing well? Are there things that are on your list that could be delegated, right? Are there things that, you agreed or said yes to that, you really can turn down or say no or reschedule, for later, right?
Yeah.
And just being able to kind of work through, the list of things that they have to do, but also, emotionally caring for them as they're going through that process. And also, because it's hard to, I think, recognize that you're not able to do everything. And then
Yeah.
also, to know that, okay, well, maybe I do need to be saying no more, because a
Yeah,
lot of us are people
absolutely.
pleasers, especially during the holidays.
And it feels like everything that you're invited to, it's almost like I have to say yes, I have to say yes. And especially even this being
Especially
on the
now.
weekend. Yeah. So
Yes,
it's so
yes.
easy to get caught up in that. And then it's like every single weekend you're booked, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're doing things during the week. And it's just so easy to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah,
So I think it's kind of coming
yeah,
back to that space of like, it's okay to say no. And it's okay to,
yeah,
tell people that I wish I could be there, but just, this is spreading me too thin. And do you feel like it's
yes.
like it's an important thing to be able to talk about like with family or with friends that like even saying no can be part of your own self-care?
And saying no is absolutely a part of your own self-care, especially now. I'm even thinking about, you had mentioned earlier, we're, especially now we're just kind of going out more because we're able
Yeah.
to do more things now. However, something that I've noticed is that, because we're human, things first change. So our endurance around these things change, right? So we've been out of practice really for,
Yeah.
like a year and a half. So to actually go into the holiday season full-fledged like we normally would, we may find that we desire to do these things, but we might not have the same energy,
Yeah. Like
endurance,
that
mental or
burnout
emotional
is,
focus to be
yeah.
able to do those things. Yeah.
And I feel like the burnout comes so much quicker because we're not used to it. Like before it was
Yeah.
like, you know, you could do a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday. And now it's just kind of like, whoa, like one thing is just like, that was a lot of stimulation. So it's almost like,
Listen, I go to the grocery store and I'm like, I ain't done for the day. Sometimes.
exactly. So it's like so easy to get that. So I think it's like, give yourself that little bit of time to like recharge, like by yourself or saying no to things. Like it's so necessary.
Yeah. And also you can also think about it this way that, you know, you saying no to something can also inspire somebody else to like check in with themselves and say no and be like, all right, well, maybe I need to, you know, maybe I am also doing a lot. You know, you could empower somebody else to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were kind of talking a little bit about just even last year, kind of those feelings of loneliness or feeling like, you know, you might not have the same as other people around the holidays. So what do you feel like you would do for someone who might be struggling with that, who's kind of like, the holidays are a really hard time for me because I'm working through grief or because I don't have a partner or because I like whatever it may be, you know, like what do you usually kind of say for someone maybe experiencing that? Because of course, like there's a lot of joy and a lot of happiness, but there's also a lot of, you know, struggle around the holidays if you might not be in the place in which you had wanted to be or hoped you were.
Yes. So again, it, you know, allowing the person to, you know, just validate their feelings, you know, share their feelings, validate their feelings. You know, I feel like there's a lot of, I think, sort of expectations around joy during the holidays. And so I think also level setting that for people too, right? So knowing that, you know, a lot of, I think, yes, it could be joyful around the holidays, but that's not like a widespread thing.
Yes.
Understanding that, you know, so maybe some of that stuff just comes from marketing, you
yes,
know, and
literally.
all of that.
Like we can't
like
expect
marketing.
to be happy the entire like month or to be like, oh my gosh, this is the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic, right? So being able to kind of level set, you know, those expectations around what this time of year is supposed to mean and supposed to feel like, reminding people that, you know, it's also a money making season, so you're going to be pumped with a lot more of that messaging, right? Then also getting to the root of, you know, the loneliness and being like, all right, or whatever it is that they're struggling with, do you feel like you need a sense of community? Do you feel like you need a sense of togetherness? Do you feel like you need some grounding? You know, how do we go about achieving what it is that you, I guess, want and desire in different ways in your life? You know what I mean? So for instance, a great thing that people do is Friendsgiving. You know,
absolutely.
There's a bunch of people who are single and they, you know, they don't have family that's close by, or they're not, you know, they're not close with their family. You know, that's another way of being able to kind of, you know, participate in the holiday season and still create like a sense of community and togetherness, right? So there's that. You know, so I think that there's multiple ways that we can kind of, I think, cultivate joy outside of the way that is presented to us during this time of year.
Yeah, like the regular constructs that like people feel like if that isn't the norm, like something is wrong, when in reality, like it's whatever you need it to be. And it's kind of finding that sense of community or belonging or whatever you need in that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. So then I kind of had a question, just like, what would you say, like, I know we've talked about like, you know, making sure that you're checking in with, you know, your overall like physical needs, like water, sleep, those kinds of things. Did you feel like you had any other like specific kind of self-care practices that you kind of like really like that resonate with you, or that you really think about as like a helpful tool in terms of just prioritizing, I guess, like self-care as a whole, like around this busy season?
I think being able to set like boundaries for yourself, right? And not just also set boundaries, but then think about with the boundaries that you're setting, what boundaries do I want to place that's going to be rigid and not going to move during the holiday season? What boundaries can I be a little bit more flexible with, right? And is there something that I'm just saying, or a boundary that I'm having that I don't even care if it gets broken, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So I think that that's important, you know, being able to know for yourself, what you're going to have boundaries around, and what can be flexible, what can't be flexible, and what needs to stay in place and what doesn't really matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like one for me too is kind of like in a similar way, like not comparing yourself or like your own experience to like other people. I feel like that's so common too, that like you see, someone doing this or someone doing that, and it's like, oh, like I'm not doing this as well, or I'm not doing enough for like
Yeah.
it's so easy to compare to like social media.
I was about to just bring up Instagram. Yeah, like
yeah.
social media will definitely, we have to remind ourselves that it's a highlight reel,
Yes.
right? But it's really hard, I think, to see so many people who might be in the same spot in life,
Yes.
or the same age as you, or they're doing something similar, and they're further ahead in their journey, or whatever the case may be, than you are. And because people are always constantly posting, we're just,
and they're
it
only
is what it
posting
is.
the good most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're seeing that. So I think it's a matter of like learning how to give yourself permission to turn from those things, whether it's turning off social media, deactivating Instagram, or whatever, social media platform that you use. That's really helpful. It's
think so
amazing
too.
how much free space you have when you tune out from those things.
Yeah, to be able to just kind of like take like a break with it. Like, okay, I'm just gonna do like a cleanse, even for like a day or a few hours or like a weekend. If you can't do the whole month, or you can't do, a full week, it's like, okay, maybe on Thanksgiving, you just turn your phone off. Like, I know we have our clients log our food or log their food, especially like that's a lot of like what the goals we're working on are, eating well and eating balance. And I feel like, me and a lot of the other team usually say like, I don't want you to log your food on Thanksgiving. Like, if you want to, by all means, but like, I don't even want you to think about that. I want you to set a goal for the day or for the week that might even be to just like get outside and go for a walk, but like, don't overthink being on your phone. Like, that's not what it's about. It's not about, checking in and writing everything down. It's about really being with, being thankful. So I think it's kind of finding those ways that you can still tune out. And like, if you feel like social media needs to be there, it's like, okay, but set boundaries for yourself. Again, those boundaries can be with people. They could be to, social engagements or social media.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to get caught up in that and kind of just like, just getting stuck in so much happening.
Absolutely.
I think, like, again, with like the physical stuff, I feel like we talk a lot about just, eating and nutrition. Obviously, that's what we do. But I think just making space for like knowing that even if you are on a plan, or knowing if you're trying to eat well or nourish your body, like it's okay to also have treats and to like enjoy yourself.
Yes.
And like, I think that that's so important too, that like, I think when we say like taking care of those basic needs of like, am I eating well? Am I sleeping? Am I drinking enough water? Like, it doesn't also have to be perfect. It's not like I'm saying no to everything. It's like, allow for the little bit of indulgences so you can still enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great example of having, I guess, sort of a boundary with yourself and having it be flexible. And a lot of times I think, is especially, with food and the holidays, some uncomfortable feelings I think come up, right? It's people, they often feel guilty. Some people feel ashamed about like their eating habits during that time period. And I think allowing for yourself to just enjoy the food without having to think about it, or restricting yourself, it's better for you emotionally and mentally.
Totally. Because again, it's just, in another way, you're getting into this place of feeling like you're restricting if you don't allow yourself to, have some things. And I think the holidays can be so hard with people around just food and exercise in general, because they're like saying yes to things so they miss their workout, or, they're having more treats or whatever it is. And it's again, like every situation, or every, like, if you feel like you fall off track, regardless of if it's with your food, your exercise, your self-care, it's like, you always have the next like situation to kind of turn things around, rather than letting it spiral into, okay, I spent the whole month not prioritizing myself. Just do it the next opportunity that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Just be able to just kind of get right back to it. It's okay to fluctuate.
Absolutely. Yeah. So did you have anything else? Did you have any questions for me? Did you have anything else that you really wanted to touch on before we maybe like dive into some questions from people?
Yeah, I think, just honestly, you said something earlier, way in the beginning of the, our time together, where you were talking about, just like honoring like your whole self, right? So
Yeah.
that's your physical self, emotional, spiritual, all that. I think it's also important to note that, when we talk to cultivate like a practice of joy, right?
Yeah.
So being able to find joy in small ways, being able to, I think, be playful as much as you possibly
Yeah.
can, especially because I think that this time of the year allows for that. I think a lot of what the holiday season is kind of wrapped up in it is that kind of like joyfulness and that playfulness and being like, oh, you're allowed to be playful during this time of the year. I think that playfulness is something that, tap into that and because it also plays into your holistic self,
Absolutely.
Creativity, joy, singing, dancing, all of that stuff. That is also very much a big part of our wellness. And I believe it's Brene Brown. I remember I was reading something of hers and she said, one of the examples of a person who is a wholehearted human being. So that is somebody who lives life to the fullest and is able to be their most authentic self, allows themselves to be playful.
Yes.
And so I think, if you can try to allow yourself to be playful on top of all that you're doing in terms of your, wellness and holistic wellness, that also expands and does so much for you internally too.
Absolutely. Like with your self-care and everything. I think she said that in her TED Talk, right?
Probably. I feel like it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm like Brene Brown obsessed. So I'm like, I don't know specifically where, but I know that she said
I feel like I watched one of her TED Talks and she said that exact quote. And I was like, I remember that.
Yeah. No, but it's true. Having that sense of joy, creativity, like all of those things, it helps to actually physically ground us. So I talk a lot about like grounding yourself, grounding your body, feeling, safe in your body. You know what I mean? So a lot of that is done through, other holistic practices too, but also through, creativity, doing something that does bring you joy, doing something you kind of get lost in, whether that's like puzzles, or doing like a dance class. All of that does, help with to ease your stress and relax your actual nervous system too.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you feel like you have like a specific kind of self-care plan that you follow? I know. So I told you I'm in my first semester of school for counseling. And literally something we had to do was make our own like self-care plan. Like I had to write a paper about like what I do to kind of prioritize my own self-care. So have you ever done that with clients or for yourself to kind of like build it out of like, all right, like these are my basics and this is kind of what I do? Because I do find that sometimes with clients where they're like, I don't know where to start with my self-care. And I'm like, well, you talking to me is you already prioritizing one.
Yeah, you're already doing it. So that's great.
Yeah. But then there's other pieces and they're like, but like, how do I do it? And it's like, I kind of walk them through, like, just take things one step at a time. Like, what things do you feel like are missing? Or what do you feel like you need to put a little bit of energy into? And ultimately, do you kind of have your own self-care practices that you really do prioritize?
So what I do, both for myself and for my clients, is that I talk a lot about what I just call it like a wellness toolkit.
I love that.
So I believe my premise is that I want for myself and all the people that I work with to be emotional athletes, right? So when we think about physical athleticism, that's a person who's able to kind of, experience different stressors on the body and do certain, skills and things. And because they have built, they're athletic and they have built themselves that way and they have trained for that. Well, I also apply that to, our emotional well-being. Right. So what I do is that with the wellness toolkit, we break it down into these components. It's your physical, your emotional, your mental, your spiritual or creative, joyful self, and then your relational self. And then we break it down and say, and I kind of go through each of the categories with them. And like, where are your resources? What are your tools? What do you have in your toolkit? What works? What doesn't work? What do you want to try that you haven't tried yet? What needs to be replaced or revamped? And I do that with them, kind of try to do it with them routinely, right? So I think like every time, the seasons change, let's kind of revisit the toolkit, because Yes, there's certain things that you're going to need, I think, or certain things that some people may need and that works for them in winter that doesn't work for them in some summer, or that they don't need
Totally.
in summer, right?
Yeah, like
So
the
that
season shift and their kind of
mhm,
like priorities or goals or things that they need might shift.
exactly. So that's what we do, just to be able, well, that's, we kind of go through, your 5 areas. What do you have in there? What needs to be put in there, and what needs to be, sort of modified or taken out or put to the back burner.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that that's great. And kind of like building out the subsections helps you kind of see like what needs to be focused on. Like I remember when I was doing that, I was kind of like looking at like, okay, my physical stuff is great, but maybe like my emotional things need work or my spiritual things need work. So you can kind of like notice areas in which you're really hitting your self-care goals, but then other places where like, all right, maybe I need to do a little bit more work here.
Yeah. And 2 things I like about it too, is that, one, you're able to see if you're actually doing something well,
Yeah.
and that feels good. You're like, oh, well,
Like,
I might
oh,
have
I'm crushing this.
yeah, yes. You're like, I'm not doing as bad as I thought that I would, that I was, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's always delightful. Right. And so then, after that, it also, I think, can sometimes show you what your access point is, right?
Yeah.
So when I say access point, I mean, what out of these different categories, what category is the thing that you find yourself turning to first that allows you to process or get through whatever it is that you need to get through?
Yeah.
Right. For some people, it might be the physical, it might be relationships. For other people, it might be the spiritual part. Like, if you're somebody who's an artist and you just kind of dive into your art, right? That might be your in to who you are and how to work through some things.
Yeah.
So that's why I like doing that too.
Yeah, it kind of like really gets you to the bottom of what needs a little bit more like energy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So just wondering, I'm gonna like reach out and see if anyone has questions. So I have the chat open. So does anyone have any specific questions? They might come through. We'll see. Well, maybe not. Well, is there anything else you want to kind of like leave everyone with? So I'll like wrap up and explain like everyone after this will get a copy of the webinar that they can obviously come back to, which is great.
Oh, someone's typing.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Kristen said, wait, she's typing.
Is typing.
No pressure, Kristen. No pressure whatsoever. Okay. We will wait for you to finish typing. So no rush.
I feel like this is the first time that we've done the webinars like they're like full like this is a new thing in Zoom. Like so before I think everyone was still here, so it feels a little bit different because you can't like see anyone's bubbles. It's nice.
Oh, okay.
Everyone's kind of like off to the side now and I'm like, "Hi guys."
Yeah, and I'm on my phone, so I'm just like seeing things as they pop up. So
yeah. Well, I know I mean, I think Beth had a question just about like struggling with, more Christmas or the differences there. But I think like with any holiday, it's kind of like taking things slow and just kind of figuring out what might be missing depending on whatever the day is. Did you see that one?
Wait, hold on. Let me open this up.
I can read it to you if you want.
Yes.
So how to deal with anxiety that interferes with being able to focus.
Okay. So I think one, your baseline, right?
Yes.
Or hopefully, I guess, you're trying to figure out like where you're landing in terms of like your anxiety. So meaning being able, once you do, I think a lot of the things in your wellness toolkit, you could see whether or not your anxiety is, one, I think, unmanageable. And then 2, if it is something that you can manage or kind of work through with a therapist, right?
Yeah.
So let me back myself up. Anxiety is as much of a feeling as it is like an emotional sort of response. It's literally your nervous system firing off and telling you to bring your attention to something. It's giving you like a burst of energy to work on something. Now, what tends to happen is that because of the world that we live in and how much we stress ourselves, not even stress ourselves out, let's be honest, like life is stressful. You know, we have children, we have bills, we have jobs, we have lots of things that we're managing. So we tend to get overstimulated. Anxiety was something that was put in us to help us when we were running from lions and tigers and bears, but now it's our emails and other things that are really weighing us down. So first start with your body. You know, how do you talk to your nervous system or ground it enough to trick it into thinking or realizing that there's nothing to be anxious about, you know, unless there is something that's like a danger, right?
Yeah.
So the deep breathing is something that is good. The breath work app, I would encourage you to do it, or something like on YouTube, there's a lot of free, you know, breath practices that you could do. Practice the breath. That first signals to the nervous system that that you're not in danger, right? And that you could come down from the physical sort of sensations that are tied to anxiety, right? So if that's the sweaty palms, that's the racing thoughts, that's for some of us, we feel it in our gut, right? So doing the breath work is basically signaling to your physical body that there's nothing to really be anxious about. I also enjoy or tell people to really work on thinking about anxiety as like energy. So you have to get that energy out of the body, right? So even if you do something like stretch, move, do some standing yoga. I'm like looking at my tension ball here. I sit with a tension ball, and whenever I feel like a surge or feel like I need to kind of move my body, or there's a point that is activated because I'm anxious, I put it on the point and I roll it out. So physically grounding your body is going to be something that really helps you to calm the anxiety. Then think about, did I drink water today? Sometimes we're anxious because our body is functioning at a deficit. Dehydration, hunger, all of those things create anxiety in our body, because literally our body is like, we're on red alert. We're on high alert. We're not getting like our needs met. So when you first start with your body, do all the practices that you can do, see how that works, and see if like, wow, okay, it works in this situation. It might not work in this situation. It definitely works here. Or I'm noticing that I'm doing all these practices and it's unmanageable. Don't be afraid to, you know, check in with like your therapist if you have one. If you don't have one, I encourage you to get one. And not because I'm a therapist, but just because it's good to kind of, you know, talk with somebody and work with somebody who has the skills to be able to help you. And then also, if you feel like it's so unmanageable that you need medication, I'm here for the medication. You know, that serves as like a good baseline until we're able to work through and find what works through us from like a holistic, you know, sense. You know what I mean? So it's really up to you what you feel like is unmanageable. But I would say if you need some time to sort of like get through some emails or refocus, it's time to check in with the body, do some breath work, make sure your needs are met, eat something, do all that you can to signal to your body that your body is safe, and that, you know, we just got to get through what it is that we have to get through.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So then our next question was, trying my best not to get sucked into disordered habits during this time of year where it's easy to get sucked into comparing myself, both to others and past versions of myself. Any advice for staying confident in my health, because I know I take care of myself, and not letting myself obsess over how I might look to others, you know, because of, you know, maybe thinking or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So I think during this time of the year, I feel like the triggers are everywhere, especially for disordered, you know, sort of whether it be like disordered eating or triggers for, you know, disordered thoughts and things like that. The holidays are a huge trigger. So one, understand and know what your triggers are. You know, there's some situations, and I guess I could pull some of my own experience into this. You know, I'm a new mom. The body looks different, and people want to tell you that the body looks different, right? So there's certain people, certain circumstances that I know that either one, I'm going to have to set a boundary around that, or I'm going to have to not attend something, you know what I mean? So understanding, but I know what my triggers are, you know? So understanding and knowing what your triggers are, having a plan around your triggers, what can be avoided, what can't be avoided. If there's something that can't be avoided, what do I need in my toolkit? What do I have in my support system that's going to, ground me and remind me, right? Another thing that is really good is probably having like a mantra. So, thoughts, they come to us whenever they come to us, because just like a majority of our bodies, the brain, even though we're conscious of it, it is something that's always working, even without us paying attention to it, right? So if you have a thought come to you that's not a very good thought, right? Instead of don't judge yourself for having the thought. The thought is just probably automatic. Your brain has thoughts. You are not your thoughts. If they just come. We have so many thoughts a day, right? So being able to ground yourself in your body, when you put yourself back into your physical body, it kind of cuts that from the brain. And then have a mantra for yourself. I am strong and powerful, or I am at the peak of my physical fitness, or something that sounds like a little bit more like your language, that's loving, that's kind, that's nurturing, and don't be afraid to reach out to your support systems during this time period. I think having supports and having people who also struggle with what it is that you struggle with is so encouraging, because it normalizes your experience. I think a lot of times we think that what we're struggling with, we're the only person struggling with it, especially when it gets really heavy, and it feels like the way that we're thinking about ourselves, or the thing that we don't like about ourselves, when it becomes all consuming, right? It's easy to get stuck in your brain and to isolate yourself in your mind.
Yeah.
Turn outward. Don't be afraid to turn towards somebody else, and turning towards somebody else who understands and who could, empathize with you. And the two of you can sort of share in that and hold each other up.
Yeah. I feel like having that support system is so important, because you have someone to kind of lean on.
Mm-hmm. And it lets you know that you're not the only person struggling with it. And there might be things that person does that you could put in your toolkit.
Yes.
That you never thought to do. You know what I mean? Because there's so many things that we could utilize, and we all each utilize them very differently. Absolutely. So you might hear someone say, oh, when I have this thought pattern, I do X, Y, and Z. And you I never thought to do it that way. So let me try that and see if it's something that's me. Yeah.
And it might end up working out great. So it's just kind of, learning from other people, or learning from someone who's having a similar experience.
Exactly. There's a lot of knowledge to be shared between, people who are going through similar things.
Yeah. And I feel like so often it's so easy to kind of shy away from, talking to friends or family or a therapist or anyone who might be experiencing something similar, because, you might be afraid that they're not, but being able to kind of open up gives you that space to talk a little bit more freely.
It does. And it gets you from out of your headspace, and it gets it out of you. Yeah. A lot of, I guess, what I'm saying today is trying to find ways to not just quell what's inside of you, but to release whatever is inside of you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any more questions? We'll give it a few seconds.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I think somebody said something about grief anniversaries. They are really hard.
Yes. Yeah. So grief anniversaries are so hard during the holidays. Any kind of coping?
So I have a lot of, it just brings up so much. Like, I feel like so many of us are grieving throughout the holidays, because it's a time period where you remember where people aren't here, or when, or that something isn't, happening the way that you would like for it to happen. Right. So I say something that I like for people to do is that, grief, it comes and it goes in waves. To me, it's very much, it could be very much like the ocean. There's times where it just kind of burls you over like a big wave. And then there's other times where grief kind of, nips at your toes, like you're kind of on the ocean, just kind of nipping at it a little bit. So in terms of grief, one, allow yourself to feel the grief. Don't think that because it's the holidays, you're not allowed to feel it. Give yourself permission to feel it, be sad, allow yourself to be sad. Grief it gets bigger. And I think emotions in general get bigger the more that we distance ourselves from it. It's almost like the closet where we have like a whole bunch of stuff shoved in there. And every time we try to move away from feeling something and we shove something in there, it feels like it's going to get even bigger and everything's going to come falling out. Give yourself permission to feel your grief and to be sad, right? After that, nurture yourself. After you you have your moment of being sad, think about, what can I do to kind of, make myself feel better? Is go through your wellness toolkit. Is there something in the physical realm that, so for instance, this time of year is hard for me because it does remind me of my grandmother, and she has unfortunately passed. However, what I also like to do is to do something that reminds me of her, right? So not only are you experiencing your grief, but you're also honoring whatever it is that you're grieving, right? So whether it's a person, you honor them with a tradition that you enjoy, whether it, for me, it's like making my grandmom's sweet potatoes. You know what I mean? It's not quite exactly like hers, but one day, hopefully it will be exactly like hers. But it feels good to kind of invoke her in that way and honor her that way. You know what I mean? Because I feel close to her when I do that. So really it's about, what can I do? One, feeling my feelings, allowing myself to feel the fullness of my sadness. What can I do to sort of make myself feel better in terms of wellness toolkit? Maybe when I feel really sad, I feel heavy. So what can I do to my physical body that doesn't make me feel heavy? So taking it that way, and then honoring whatever it is, replacing that, not replacing the grief, but also tacking on something that can be a way of honoring something or someone that you miss.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. So thank you everyone for all the questions. They were wonderful and kind of made us dive a little bit deeper. Obviously, I think you will be back for webinars. Like, everyone's super excited when you're here. We love it. Everyone will get a recording of this, and maybe we'll even kind of like work through something to kind of give someone, like, give them a template for a wellness toolkit or something.
Yeah.
Like that. I feel like that would be awesome.
That'd be cool. I like that.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And then obviously they'll get an email, they'll get a copy of this webinar. And then we also have a new holiday ebook that we have. It's like a holiday nutrition guide, just about like tips around the holiday. That's going to be way more nutrition centered, but still a lot of these things go hand in hand, as we were talking about before, that, really treating the whole body is so important, kind of, having everything kind of intermingle.
Yes, absolutely. That all sounds fantastic. So I actually kind of want the ebook too.
I know. We'll get it. Don't worry.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Thank you for being here. I will, reach out. We'll chat. We'll do another something like this, maybe in the next season, so we can be like, all right, now we're in the new year. What do we need to do next?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, it was great to finally meet you face to face today. And I'm excited to see what comes next. Enjoy your week and enjoy your holiday, everyone.
You also. Bye, everyone. Thank you.